What's good, YouTube? Here to bring you my pure Spright deck that I climbed to Diamond 5 with. With the release of tier limits and their dominant presence in the format, this is the only deck I felt that stood a chance against that matchup. I had to play a lot of tier limit hate in this deck list, as we can see in the first card, DD Crow. This card is always used when the tier limits activate their effects in Grave, because they need to resolve by shuffling back into the deck to fusion summon, so DD Crow completely prevents that by banishing that monster. So for that reason, DD Crow is the best hand trap against the tier limits. Next, we have Testudo Erat Newman. Now this card is just to floodgate the tier limit monsters, as we can summon this off of Mannequin Cat, which is able to special summon a monster that your opponent controls of the same type or attribute, and they share the same type of Aqua. So for that reason, we run Testudo. Next, we have Effect Veiler. This is used to negate tier limit Kit Kalos, which is their best fusion monster that they always go into for their first fusion play. Once we negate that, it's really hard for them to extend, so that's why we're going to be running a lot of monster negation in this deck list. Next, we have 3 Max C's, just of course the best hand trap in the game. The next tech option we have is Wind Up Kitten. Now this allows you to target one monster your opponent controls and return that target to the hand. With all the tier limit monsters having their effects activated when being sent to the graveyard, returning monsters to the hand is actually a much better removal option than against other matchups. So especially when it's their fusion monsters, because you can just completely get rid of them and it's not like they can just normal special summon them back. So Wind Up Kitten is actually very helpful with if they set up their boards and you're going second. Wind Up Kitten can help clear the board a lot better. Next we have 3 Nimble Beavers. I find this card to be a lot faster than the Frog Engine. For that reason, we're not running the Swap Frog and the Ronin Totem, because with just special summoning another Beaver onto the field, we're able to just from one card get into Spright Gigantus, and then from there combo off with the rest of the Spright engine. We run 2 Cap Shells for the Draw engine. I would run the other reptile card, starts with an I. I should have it displayed on the screen right now. But I just don't have it, so for that reason we're running Cap Shell. It's not that bad of a card either. Like it basically does the same thing, so it's not that much of a difference. But if I could, I would run the other reptile card that allows you to draw unsummon. Next, we run 3 Spright Blues. The best Spright in the game, allows you to search another Spright monster. Usually we go into Spright Jet, which we run 3 of. This allows you to search any spells and trap in the Spright archetype. Another tech option we're running is Spright Pixie. Now this allows you to discard it or send itself from the field to the graveyard to boost the attack of any level 2, rank 2, or link 2 from your field to the highest attack of your opponent's monsters. Now, the reason I run Spright Pixie, not only for the body, because I tend to run a lot more bodies for this deck list than other Spright lists, because it's just very helpful to have more Spright bodies on the field, but running over the tier limits monsters by battle is actually a lot more viable than people might think, because the tier limit monsters can only activate their effects when they are sent to the graveyard, but if they're destroyed by battle, that actually takes away the effects for their effects to trigger. So for that reason, Spright Pixie is actually quite viable in that matchup. Next, we run 2 Spright Reds for the monster negation, 2 Spright Carrots for the spell trap negation. Now we run 2 of each because we just need more bodies on the field to special summon, and we want to make sure we always end on at least one of these negations. So, that's why we run 2 and 2. 3 Ash Blossoms. Not that great in the tier limit matchup, but it's still really good, especially when they're gonna mill 5 with the Shizu cards or with the Kit Kalos when they mill 5. We really want to prevent that, because if we allow that to resolve, then they can definitely get like a lot more advantage when they mill a lot of cards that activate in the grave. Next, we run Ghost Spell. Not as good as DD Crow, but still helps with preventing the tier limits to get into their fusion monsters. 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. This card is good because a lot of the archetypal spells and traps and tier limits are really good, so we want to prevent that from like resolving when we go through our plays. 2, Call by the Graves, because we have a lot more monsters activating their effects in the graveyards, especially the tier limits. So preventing that from happening with Call by the Grave is just much more essential and important. We run 2 Spright starters to get into the other Spright monsters, so it just helps with the engine going. Of course, very standard running 2 Spright starters. And then similar to Spright Pixie, we run 1 Spright Gamma Burst. Now this allows you to boost all your level 2, rank 2s, link 2s by 1400 attack. And for the same reasoning of running Pixie, we just use it to get over the tier limit monsters because they don't really get that big. They kind of cap out at 3500, which at that point you're probably going to be losing anyway. But like when we prevent like Kit Kalos from activating its effect and it's like stuck on one monster, you can just get over it with Spright Gamma Burst. So definitely very helpful with that. Also helps with OTKing if you're not going against the tier limits. So just a great card overall. Spright Smashers, we run 2. We bump this up from 1 because, again, with the tier limits, all their effects activate in the graveyard. So we want to prevent that by just banishing it, because banishing is just the best removal against the tier limit matchup. And with that, you're just like able to extend further or go continue your plays without any interruptions. Um, and you can activate it going first, going second is a quick play spell. So yeah, just very helpful in that matchup. And then 3 Infinite Impermanence. This is just again for the tier limit Kit Kalos. We just don't want that effect to resolve, because after that they usually just pass and you can just continue your plays. And now moving on to the extra deck, we got Gachi Gachi Gantetsu. I run this card because I don't have the Sky Cavalry, which is just a much better card and helps us get into Zeus. But because I don't have that card, I'm running this, which again helps me get into Zeus. Then we have 1 Djinn Buster for the monster negates, 1 Cat Shark to get over a monster with high attack or just to OTK, 1 Mannequin Cat for the reason as explained before for Tetsudo Newman, and then also it helps against the mirror match. So yeah, Mannequin Cat's also just a good card for that. 2 Gigantic Spright to extend further to get into any of the other Spright monsters. Divine Zeus for board clears, as mentioned with the Gachi Gachi. And then we got Nightmare Phoenix to get rid of any back row. Next we have IP Masquerena for follow-up plays, because we usually want to resolve this on your opponent's turn, usually going into Nightmare Unicorn or the Underworld Goddess. So just a great follow-up play to disrupt your opponent. Next we got 2 Spright Elves. This is just for recovery. We usually always want to summon this any chance we get. We can get back our Spright Blue or Spright Jet that will help us refill our hand. So yeah, of course Spright Elf is just really good. Next we got Nightmare Unicorn to shuffle back an opponent's monster. Usually we resolve this off of IP Masquerena, shuffling back any of the tier limit cards, because again we just don't want their cards to go into the graveyard. We just want to get them off the field any other way, and shuffling them is obviously a good option, although not that great specifically with tier limits, because especially their main deck monsters, if we shuffle those back into the deck, they'll just mill it again and then they'll be able to resolve their effects. So usually we want to save this when they have their fusion monsters out. Next we got Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess for monster negates. Access Code Talker to either get really big to get over a big monster or for the destruction effect. Not that great against the tier limits, but great in any other matchup. And then finally we have Underworld Goddess. This is just to link away your opponent's monsters. Usually we only save this for when your opponents have like big towers or any other cards that we just don't know how else to get rid of. Great disruption play with the IP Masquerena. Also prevents like opponents special summoning from the graveyard. So if you have any matchups that are like that, this would help with that. Unfortunately, not that great again against the tier limits. And with all that being said, let's just get into the replays. Okay, so for our first replay, surprise, surprise, we're going to be looking at tier limit Ishizu. So we're going to get into that right now. Alright, so they're going first, and this is my hand with 2 Sprights, 1 DD Crow, thankfully, and then the Imperm. So it's not bad. They go for the Foolish Burials for the tier limits. As I was saying before, DD Crow, preventing that from happening. Thankfully, they didn't have called by. Then they go for one of the tier limit screen. This is the one where they can mill if they control a DD monster, tier limit monster. And thankfully they didn't have one. They had Keldo. I guess they didn't realize what they needed for that to resolve. So we're able to go into the Spright engines. Here we can go into Spright Blue, search the Jet. Jet gets the starter. And then this is we're just gonna be building our field to make sure they're not able to play smoothly on their next turn. Spright Elf. They have the DD Crow themselves, which is all fine. Going to Spright Gigantic. Go for the Spright Carrot. From here, we're able to just poke them for a bit of damage. Now we have a bunch of disruption in the form of hand traps, so we're good here for our first turn. We're also up in card advantage. They have the King of Swamp. Not sure why they run this with the polymerization and everything. I feel like every time I see this variant, it's not that good. But either way, I try to summon using Elf, but they have the Shuffler with the Shizu card. Doesn't matter. Their next card is going to be Triple Tactics Talent, which I'm able to negate with Carrot. So that just resolves the game right there. Now on to the next one. Now on to the second replay. Very similar list to the last one with the Triple Tactics Talent, the Scream, but this is just, again, Tier Limit Ishizu. This is what you're going to be seeing all over the ladder. That's definitely what I've been seeing all over the ladder. So we're just going to get into the replay right now. Oh, something that's a little different with this is actually El Shaddai Winda that they played this variant, so yeah. Now here I get to go first. So Windupkin's not going to do anything, but we're still normal summon it because it allows us to special summon all the rest of the Spright monsters. With Jet, we're able to search Smasher just to end on something with an interruption. Because I figure, again, I'm always running against tier limits, so I always go with the Smashers, and here confirmed that we are running with them. Here they have the Imperm, but I'm like, this is more valuable to resolve Spright, Gigantic Spright to get to blue, so I activate Carrot to negate the Imperm. I'll let that resolve because we have the Called by in hand. Descend, they get one of the tier limit cards. I don't believe that's the one that allows to special summon from grave. And if you do, send one monster from your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can fusion summon. Okay, so I'm not sure why he didn't do that. I guess he was waiting for something else, or he didn't have something to really go into. Either way, we go for Cap Shell. I'm sorry, I didn't go for blue. To draw, using Elf, we special summon red. Then we're just able to set 3 and pass. There's more than enough disruption here, so it's going to be very difficult for him to play around this. Have the Spright Smasher because he targeted with his tier limit, I believe, Heartbreak. Or Heartbeat, sorry. But yeah, a bunch of chains are going off with Elf, special summoning Spright, getting rid of the spells and trap with negate with Carrot, banishing the tier limit, searching starter with Spright, Foolish Burial Goods. He's gonna search a tier limit card from his deck to his hand. He gets that. Not sure why he's gonna go for that. I let this resolve because again I have the Called by the Grave, so we activate that. We're able to get rid of that. Not able to resolve that. He goes over my Elf just like that. He goes for instant fusion, and this is what I'm talking about with Kit Kalos, where we have the Imperm, and this is good because we also have the red because we don't allow him to mill. So right here we're gonna Imperm that, and then this is gonna destroy. He's gonna mill 5, but I'm not gonna allow that to happen, so I use red. Now it's my turn. DD Crow. Thankfully we have the Spright starter, so we're just going to be able to just go off because we're just going to assume his back row is nothing. So yeah, going to Jet into Smasher. Gigantic Spright. This is the part where Monster Negate. Unfortunate, but we can just poke him for more. He's not able to special summon because I know that monster could special summon from the grave, but he would need to send a monster from your hand. Yeah, someone tier limit card from your hand to the graveyard, so he's not able to do that. So this is just fine by me. We go into Spright Elf again. This is, again, we always want to end off with Spright Elf because of just the recursion that it has. Set the Spright Smasher. And you just see he doesn't have anything against this. Yeah, I had a DD Crow, so there was no way. On to the next replay. And for the third replay, here we have something other than tier limits because occasionally you will see something outside of tier limits. This is going to be Dragon Link. So, yeah, this is, I believe, going to be also a win. Right, so I go second in this matchup. Had the DD Crow Maxi. Maxi for that. I thought this was going to be a good hand against the tier limits, but he wasn't playing tier limits. He's going to change his Rocket Tracer. It's going to not be, I'm not going to be able to draw off of that because he changed appropriately. He still goes for it. Striker Dragon, I get a draw off of that. He searches his spell or field spell. But DD Crow still comes up here because he's gonna be, he wants to add this card to his hand using the Link Monsters effect. So we're able to get rid of both using DD Crow. And he just ends his turn right here. And this is what, I remember this match now because this is where, yeah, I use Gamma Burst. And this is why I talk about where Gamma Burst can just help with the OTK. Ghost Spell came in very clutch here because Frame Gear Gamma needs to special summon a driver from the deck, hand, or graveyard, and because of that graveyard portion, Ghost Spell is able to negate it, which is just fine because now I know he has that and no other disruptions. I feel like I can just go for game because just having 3 monsters and Gamma Burst is just enough. And specifically with, I believe I searched Pixie here, yeah, Pixie has 1400, and just with these 3 cards plus the Gamma Burst is just enough for 8000 damage. So yeah, Gamma Burst is just a great card, and Pixie helps with as well. So yeah. And that's it for all the rematches. I hope to see you guys on the next one.